The steady beep of the heart monitor punctuated the silence as Clara Bennett sat beside her mother's hospital bed, her fingers intertwined with her mother's thin, pale hand, once strong and capable, now barely able to return her gentle squeeze. Some people say there are lines you should never cross for love, but what if crossing that line was the only way to save the person who gave you life? Clara stared at the mounting bills on her phone screen, the numbers blurring through her tears. $347,000, 0 cents and climbing. No insurance coverage, no charity programs, no options left. Have you ever stood at a moral crossroads, that moment when the right choice and the necessary choice become two entirely different paths? What Clara did next would challenge everything she believed about herself, about love, about sacrifice. She made a decision that millions would judge, a contract marriage to a man who could never love her the way a husband should. A business arrangement, a transaction, a deal with New York's most enigmatic billionaire. But neither Clara nor Elliot Grayson could have anticipated how quickly cold agreements on paper could ignite into something dangerous, how calculated decisions could transform into raw emotion, how a signature on a contract could rewrite both their destinies. This is the story of a desperate choice that became an unexpected journey, one that would blur every boundary between convenience and obsession. Clara Bennett had always been the responsible one. At 27, she'd put her own dreams of fashion design on hold after her father's sudden death 3 years ago. Instead, she took on 2 jobs, administrative assistant by day, food delivery driver by night, all to ensure her mother, Evelyn, could keep their modest Queens apartment and maintain a dignified retirement. "You don't have to carry everything, Clara," her mother would insist during their Sunday dinners, the only consistent break in Clara's relentless schedule. "I'm fine, Mom, just building character," Clara would joke, hiding the exhaustion behind her smile. That was before the headaches began, before the dizziness, before Evelyn collapsed in the middle of their kitchen on a rain-soaked Tuesday afternoon. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap: glycoprotein storage disease type B, a rare condition affecting only 200 people worldwide. Without specialized treatment, Evelyn's organs would gradually shut down. 6 months to live, maximum. The only treatment protocol existed at the Hansen Miyazaki Medical Center: experimental, promising, and catastrophically expensive. $300,000 for the initial treatment phase, the specialist explained, her voice clinical but compassionate, and potentially twice that for the complete protocol. Clara applied for every medical assistance program. She created crowdfunding campaigns. She approached local charities. The responses came back identical: insufficient funds, too specialized a condition, outside coverage parameters. "We can make you comfortable," another doctor suggested, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. Week by week, Clara watched her mother fade. Evelyn's once vibrant complexion turned ashen. The woman who had single-handedly raised Clara after becoming widowed young now needed help holding a glass of water. Clara's apartment visits became hospital visits. Her savings evaporated into co-pays and medications that only eased symptoms without addressing the cause. Her credit cards maxed out. Loan applications returned with polite rejections. "You should go back to your design sketches," Evelyn whispered one evening, catching Clara staring blankly at the hospital wall. "I've seen how you look at them on your phone when you think I'm sleeping." Clara squeezed her mother's hand. "There's time for that later." But there wasn't time. The specialists were clear. Without the Hansen Miyazaki treatment beginning within 6 weeks, the disease would progress beyond the intervention window. Have you ever felt the world closing in? That moment when every door you've knocked on has shut in your face, and the clock keeps ticking, indifferent to your prayers? Clara found herself in the hospital chapel at 3 a.m., not praying but calculating. Selling her car would add $8,000, 0 cents. Liquidating her 401k, another $27,000, 0 cents. Nowhere near enough. It was in the hospital cafeteria, staring into a cold cup of coffee, that Clara overheard 2 nurses discussing a news story. Can you believe it? 5th marriage in 10 years. Each wife walks away with millions after 2 years. They're saying this Grayson guy uses marriage like business mergers. Clara barely registered the conversation until one word caught her attention. Contract. Marriage. Contract. That night, Clara researched until dawn. Contract marriages, prenuptial agreements, legal arrangements designed to benefit both parties, with clear terms and conditions. The desperate plan formed in her mind against her better judgment, a temporary solution with permanent consequences, a crossing of boundaries she never imagined possible. But what would you do to save the only family you have left? What line wouldn't you cross when the alternative is watching your mother slip away when a solution exists just beyond your reach? Clara made her decision as the sun rose over the Manhattan skyline. She would find this Grayson person, she would make an offer, she would save her mother, whatever the cost to herself. What she couldn't know was how high that cost would ultimately be. Elliot Grayson was a paradox wrapped in $1,000 suits. At 34, he commanded the third-largest venture capital firm in Manhattan. His investor meetings filled conference rooms. His name appeared on power lists. Business magazines speculated endlessly about his personal life, constructing elaborate theories to explain why New York's most eligible bachelor remained steadfastly single. The truth was simpler and more complex than they could fathom. Elliot had discovered his sexuality at 15 during a summer in Greece with his conservative family. The revelation had nearly destroyed his relationship with his father, a traditionalist who expected an heir to marry appropriately and continue the Grayson legacy. The compromise they eventually reached was silence. Elliot's private life remained invisible as long as the family name and business interests remained protected. Contract marriages became Elliot's solution. His first arrangement had been with Jessica Kim, a brilliant environmental scientist whose research funding had been slashed by political budget cuts. They married for 2 years, allowing Elliot to satisfy his father's expectations, while Jessica secured the funding to save 3 endangered species. When they divorced, she walked away with $5 million, 0 cents, and a thriving career. Both considered it a success. The second was with Arya Patel, a software engineer facing visa issues that threatened to derail her groundbreaking AI research. Another 2-year arrangement. Another mutually beneficial outcome. By his 5th marriage, the media had noticed. Tabloids created conspiracy theories. Business rivals whispered about calculated moves. None understood that Elliot had discovered something rare in a city obsessed with self-interest, a way to use his privilege for genuine good while maintaining the facade his family demanded. The penthouse on East 72nd Street served as both sanctuary and stage. Public appearances happened in carefully orchestrated spaces. Charity galas, investor dinners, art openings, where he played the part of the enigmatic mogul. His actual home, a modest loft in Brooklyn, remained unknown to anyone except his closest circle. Daniel, his partner of 8 years, understood the arrangement. Their relationship existed in a parallel universe. Weekend trips upstate, quiet dinners in Daniel's kitchen, lazy mornings reading newspapers in bed. Daniel accepted that he could never be Elliot's public partner, that family obligations and business pressures dictated a different path. "I love you, not your family's approval," Daniel would say during the difficult conversations. "Do what you need to do." But the cost accumulated. Each marriage chipped away at something essential. The constant compartmentalization, Elliot the public figure, Elliot the private man, Elliot the business partner in a legal arrangement, Elliot the lover hidden from view, created fractures in his identity. His therapist called it emotional compartmentalization disorder. His mother called it survival. His father called it duty. Elliot called it protection. Walls built high enough to keep everyone safe. Boundaries clear enough to prevent complications. Agreements detailed enough to eliminate surprises. He had mastered the art of helping others without getting involved. 5 successful contract marriages. 0 emotional entanglements. 0 regrets. Until Clara Bennett appeared in his office with an offer that would test every rule he'd built to protect himself. What Elliot didn't realize was that sometimes the most carefully constructed walls crumble from the inside out. Sometimes the lines drawn in legal contracts mean nothing when faced with genuine human connection. Sometimes protection becomes prison. Clara's research began at 4 a.m. in the hospital parking garage, her car serving as a makeshift office. The concept of contract marriage wasn't entirely foreign. Reality TV shows had sensationalized the idea for years. But the legal framework proved more complex than she'd anticipated. Prenuptial agreements, marriage contracts, specific terms outlining financial obligations and exit strategies. The cases she found ranged from practical to predatory, but none exactly matched her needs. Clara Bennett researching marriage contracts at sunrise. "Who have I become?" she muttered, cross-referencing legal precedents on her phone. Her moral compass spun wildly. Was she considering prostituting herself? Using marriage as a transaction? Exploiting someone's wealth for her own gain? But then she'd return to her mother's bedside, watch Evelyn struggle with another breathing treatment, and the abstract ethics crumbled against raw necessity. After 2 weeks of preparation, Clara had compiled a folder labeled Potential Approach. News articles about Elliot Grayson, his previous marriage patterns, his charitable donations, his business expansion strategies. Every public detail that might help her craft an argument. Getting to him proved the first challenge. Grayson Capital didn't take walk-in appointments. His assistant screened calls with practiced efficiency. Security guards knew her face after 3 failed attempts at the lobby. Finally, Clara intercepted him during his predictable morning jog through Central Park. "Mr. Grayson, I need 2 minutes of your time." Elliot paused, earbuds removing slowly. His eyes, sharp, assessing, evaluated this interruption. Clara, in her worn jeans and faded university sweatshirt, hardly matched his usual contact profile. "You've been trying to reach my office," he stated, not asked. His security detail appeared from the jogging path behind them. "I have a proposition, a business arrangement. It's unconventional. I manage $3 billion, 0 cents in assets. Everything's unconventional." His tone balanced curiosity with impatience. Clara opened her folder, hands trembling slightly. "I know about your marriage history, the contract arrangements, the business partnerships disguised as relationships." Elliot's expression hardened. "You know nothing about my history." "I know you help people. Jessica Kim's environmental research, Arya Patel's visa situation. You use your position to create opportunities for others." Clara's voice gained strength. "I need that help. My mother is dying." Something in Elliot's posture shifted, not softer, but attentive. "Medical bills. Treatment exists, but costs beyond anything achievable through traditional means. I've exhausted every option." Clara's prepared speech dissolved into raw honesty. "I'm proposing a contract marriage. 2 years, full prenup, whatever terms you require. In exchange, you cover my mother's medical expenses. And you offer what in return? Public companionship, business appearances, the same facade your previous marriages provided, plus discretion, and—" Clara hesitated. "Genuine gratitude for saving my mother's life." Elliot studied her intently. Most people approached him with rehearsed pitches, calculated charm, or veiled threats. Clara's desperation was unpolished, direct, almost naive. "Why should I believe you're different from the countless others who approach me with sob stories?" Clara reached into her folder and extracted a manila envelope. "Hospital records, treatment estimates, documentation of every rejected assistance application, my mother's medical history, my financial statements, everything you need to verify my situation." Elliot accepted the envelope but didn't open it. "You're essentially asking me to buy a wife." The blunt words hit Clara like cold water, but she stood firm. "I'm asking you to enter a mutually beneficial business arrangement. You maintain your public persona. I saved my mother's life. Both parties get what they need. What makes you think you can handle this kind of arrangement? The scrutiny, the pretense, the public exposure?" "Because I have no other choice, and because I respect the boundaries you've established in your previous contracts." I'm not looking for love or romance. I'm looking for a solution. Elliot was quiet for a long moment, joggers passing them on either side. Finally he spoke. My office. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring a lawyer if you have one. If not, I'll provide one to ensure you understand what you're agreeing to. Clara's eyes widened. You're considering this? I'm considering whether your desperation comes from genuine need or sophisticated manipulation. Tomorrow will determine which. As he resumed jogging, Elliot paused once more. Clara, your mother's diagnosis. How much time? 4 weeks before the treatment window closes. His nod was almost imperceptible before he disappeared down the path, leaving Clara trembling in the cool morning air, uncertain whether she'd just secured salvation or signed her own destruction. The conference room at Grayson Capital stretched like a football field. 2 teams of lawyers occupied opposite ends of a mahogany table, documents scattered across its surface like battle maps. Clara sat beside her court-appointed attorney Margaret Reyes, while Elliot maintained his position at the head of the table. Standard terms first, announced Elliot's lead counsel, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Walsh. Duration, 24 months from wedding date. Financial disclosure, complete transparency from both parties. Confidentiality, absolute regarding the contractual nature of the marriage. Clara watched Patricia slide a stack of papers toward Margaret. The first page alone contained more legal terminology than Clara had encountered in her lifetime. Financial obligations, Patricia continued. Mr. Grayson will cover all medical expenses for Mrs. Evelyn Bennett's treatment at Hanson Miyazaki Medical Center. Additionally, a monthly stipend of $5,000.00 for Ms. Bennett's personal expenses during the marriage term. Clara's breath caught. The monthly amount exceeded her previous annual income. And my obligations? Clara asked. Elliot answered directly. Public appearances as requested, typically 3 to 4 per month. Business functions, social events, family gatherings. Maintain the appearance of a married couple. Margaret examined the papers meticulously. Living arrangements? Mrs. Bennett will relocate to my penthouse residence. Separate bedrooms, shared common areas. Guest access to Mr. Grayson's Brooklyn properties for privacy when needed. The negotiations continued for 3 hours. Termination clauses, asset protection, media management. Every possible scenario is addressed with clinical precision. More provision, Elliot added, his voice careful. Complete discretion regarding my personal life. You'll understand more once we're married, but my private relationships must remain private. Clara nodded. The lawyers exchanged worried glances, an unusual clause requiring further explanation, but Elliot's expression discouraged questions. As the lawyers finalized language, Clara's internal turmoil intensified. Was she selling herself? Creating an artificial relationship that betrayed everything she believed about marriage? Her mother's face appeared in her mind. Frail, hopeful, fighting for each breath. I need a moment, Clara announced, stepping onto the building's terrace. Elliot followed after a brief pause. Second thoughts, he asked, joining her at the railing overlooking Manhattan. Every thought, Clara admitted. My mother thinks I'm getting married for love. How do I explain this to her? You don't have to explain anything. Tell her you met someone who wants to help. That part's true. Is it? Clara turned to face him. Why are you helping me? Really? Elliot was quiet for a moment. Because you're not asking for something I can't give. And because sometimes the system fails people who deserve better. They returned to sign the agreement at 4:47 p.m. Each page carried Clara further from her previous life. 2 weeks later, they married at City Hall. Clara wore a simple blue dress purchased the night before. Elliot wore a gray suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. 2 witnesses, Margaret and Patricia, completed the legal requirement. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. No kiss, no celebration. Just signatures on documents that would reshape both their lives. Leaving the courthouse, Elliot paused beside the waiting car. Clara, thank you. I know this isn't easy. Neither is watching your mother die, she replied softly. We both get what we need. Have you ever wondered how it feels to cross a line you never thought you'd approach? To make a choice that challenges everything you believed about yourself? No. Clara Bennett became Clara Grayson that afternoon, on paper at least. In reality, she had entered a performance that would test every boundary she thought she understood. The car ride to her new home passed in silence, both knowing the real complexity of their arrangement was just beginning. The elevator to the penthouse required a fingerprint scan. Clara pressed her thumb to the reader, still surprised when it beeped approval. 27 floors up, the doors opened to reveal what would be her temporary home. Glass walls offering panoramic views of Manhattan, furniture that looked like museum pieces, and silence that felt expensive. "Left wing is yours," Elliot had instructed during their brief tour. "Kitchen's fully stocked, staff comes Tuesdays and Thursdays. I travel frequently, so you'll have the place to yourself often." Clara's belongings fit into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. Her childhood dresser looked comical next to the Italian minimalist furniture, but Elliot had insisted she make the space her own. "It's a home, not a hotel room," he'd said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely sure himself. The first week passed in a strange dance of avoidance. They'd created schedules to minimize interaction. Elliot left for morning runs at 5 a.m., Clara took evening walks after 8 p.m. Shared dinners were rare, usually coinciding with the housekeeper's prepared meals. But the medical treatment began immediately. Dr. Sarah Chin at Henson Miyazaki called the morning after the wedding. "Mrs. Grayson, we can begin your mother's protocol as early as Friday." Mrs. Grayson. The name still felt foreign. The treatment center looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Evelyn's private room overlooked Central Park, equipped with technology Clara couldn't have imagined for their queen's apartment. "How is this possible?" Evelyn whispered, touching the Egyptian cotton sheets. "Clara, what did you do?" "I married someone who believes in helping people," Clara answered. Not a lie, but not the complete truth. Watching her mother receive the first IV infusion, Clara felt simultaneous relief and guilt. The medication flowed clear and steady, carrying hope through plastic tubing. For the first time in months, Evelyn's breathing seemed easier. Back at the penthouse, Clara found Elliot in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, attempting to operate the espresso machine. "How's your mother?" he asked, not looking up from the machine that was making gurgling sounds. "Responding well. The doctors are optimistic." Clara paused. "You've never used this machine before, have you?" "I usually drink coffee at the office." He stepped back as the machine hissed threateningly. "This thing requires an engineering degree." Clara couldn't help laughing. "Let me," as she prepared 2 proper espressos. Elliot watched with genuine curiosity. "Where'd you learn that?" 3 years, working at a coffee shop through college, before I had to reprioritize." They sat at the breakfast bar, an unexpected moment of normalcy between them. "I met with Daniel today," Elliot said suddenly. "Explain the arrangement. Wanted him to hear it from me before the news hits the social pages." Clara nodded, remembering the private relationships clause in their contract. "Your boyfriend?" "Partner. 8 years." Elliot studied his espresso cup. "He's understanding about these arrangements, but this feels different." "Different how?" "Usually my contract wives integrate into the public role easily. Professional models, actresses, people comfortable performing. You're more—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Authentic." Clara wasn't sure whether that was a compliment or concern. Their first public appearance came 3 days later, a charity gala for pediatric cancer research. Clara wore a vintage Halston dress they'd found at Bergdorf's, feeling like an imposter in couture. "Just stay close," Elliot advised in the car. "Follow my lead. We're newly married, still figuring things out." The event was a masterclass in performance. Elliot's hand stayed protectively on her lower back. He introduced her with practiced ease, deflecting intrusive questions about their whirlwind romance. Clara played her part, smiling graciously, touching his arm at appropriate moments, laughing at jokes she didn't understand. But during the auction segment, something genuine happened. A package for family camp sessions for children with cancer came up for bidding. 50,000, Elliot called out. 60, countered another bidder. Clara watched him closely. His jaw tightened, but not with competitive drive, with something deeper. 1,000, 100,000. He bid firmly, ending the competition. Later, in the car home, Clara couldn't contain her curiosity. Why that particular package? Elliot was quiet for a moment. My cousin David had leukemia. He died at 9. Those camps gave him his only normal moments during treatment. The vulnerability in his voice surprised them both. For the first time, Clara glimpsed the person behind the businessman, behind the calculated arrangements. I never had cousins, Clara shared softly. Just my mom and me after Dad died, but I understand losing people too young. The remainder of the ride passed in comfortable silence, a subtle shift in their dynamic neither acknowledged but both felt. That night, Clara heard Elliot playing piano, something classical and melancholy flowing through the penthouse walls. She sat in her room, listening to the music, realizing their arrangement was evolving into something neither contract nor law could adequately define. Small moments continued accumulating. Elliot leaves coffee for her before his morning runs. Clara ordered groceries to stock foods he actually enjoyed. Shared looks during tedious business dinners. Silent understanding when either needed space. The boundaries outlined in their contract remained intact, but the space between those lines began filling with something unexpected: companionship, born from mutual respect and shared purpose. The breakthrough came during a thunderstorm in November. Clara woke at 3 a.m. to lightning illuminating the penthouse and the sound of rain against floor-to-ceiling windows. She found Elliot in the living room, barefoot in pajama pants and a t-shirt, staring out at the storm. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked softly. He turned, looking startled. His hair was mussed, guard completely down. "I don't usually sleep during storms." "Bad memories?" Elliot was quiet for so long, Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "When I was 12, we had a massive storm at our summer house in the Hamptons. My father got drunk, angrier than usual. Started yelling about disappointments, about how I wasn't the son he wanted." His voice dropped. "I hid in the wine cellar until morning. The sound of rain reminds me of listening to him rage above me." Clara moved closer. "I'm sorry." "Didn't be. It taught me early to build walls." He glanced at her. "Your father, the one who died? Heart attack at 42. One day he was teaching me to drive stick shift, the next he was gone." Clara joined him at the window. "I learned to carry everything myself after that." They stood in comfortable silence, watching lightning dance across the Hudson. "Want some tea?" Clara asked. "At 3 a.m.? Best time for tea during storms. My mom always made it." They sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, cups steaming between them, rain providing a soundtrack. Elliot had wrapped himself in a cashmere throw, looking younger somehow. "Daniel thinks I'm getting too comfortable with this arrangement," Elliot admitted. "Are you?" "I don't know anymore." His honesty surprised them both. "Usually my contract wives and I have specific boundaries, structured interactions. This feels different." "Different how?" "You're not performing. Even at events, you're genuinely yourself." He paused. "It's disarming." Clara smiled. "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet." 2 weeks later, during a particularly brutal business meeting, Clara witnessed Elliot at his most vulnerable. She'd driven him to the office after his car broke down, a rare glimpse into his professional world. His partners were discussing a potential acquisition that would displace 3,000 workers. The numbers looked profitable, but Elliot's questions focused on severance packages, retraining programs, and community impact. "You're being too soft, Elliot," one partner argued. "Business is business." Clara watched his jaw tighten. After the meeting, she found him alone in his office, head in his hands. "Tough decision?" she asked gently. "I have a responsibility to investors, but those are people's lives." He looked up. "Sometimes the math doesn't account for everything." "What will you do?" "Find a solution that protects the jobs. It'll cost us, but..." He shrugged. "Some things matter more than profit margins." Clara saw past the billionaire businessman facade, the person who genuinely struggled with ethical decisions, who carried the weight of others' livelihoods. Their morning routines began overlapping accidentally, on purpose. Elliot would finish his run just as Clara started breakfast. She'd make extra coffee, he'd share sections of the newspaper. One Saturday, Elliot found Clara painting in the guest room, something she hadn't done since her father's death. "I didn't know you were an artist." "I'm not really, just something I used to love." He studied her work, a watercolor of her mother's garden, from memory. "You should have the studio upstairs, it has better light." "The studio?" "Third floor. I converted it years ago, but never used it." The studio became Clara's sanctuary. Elliot would sometimes join her, reading while she painted, their comfortable silence speaking louder than words. During a family dinner at the Grayson mansion, Elliot's father made cutting remarks about Clara's modest background. Elliot's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. Later, in the car, he apologized. "My family can be difficult." "I noticed." Clara squeezed his hand back. "Thank you for defending me. You're my wife." The word came out naturally, without the clinical distance it usually carried. They both noticed. "Legally," Clara added quickly. "Right, legally." But neither let go of the other's hand. The confusion mounted with each passing day. Their conversations deepened beyond small talk. Shared meals happened more frequently. Elliot brought Daniel to dinner once, at Clara's suggestion. Daniel was charming, understanding, and seemed to study their interactions with knowing eyes. "You two are different together," Daniel observed privately to Elliot. "More present." Clara found herself looking forward to Elliot's return from business trips. Elliot started checking in with her about her mother's progress, her mood, her needs. One evening, preparing for another charity event, Clara caught Elliot staring at her reflection as she adjusted her necklace. "What?" she asked. "Nothing, just you look beautiful." The compliment hung between them, genuine and unexpected. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks, while Elliot looked equally surprised by his admission. "Thank you," she managed. In the elevator down, the tension was undeniable. Clara wondered when exactly their contract marriage had begun feeling like something more. When had husband and wife transformed from legal terms to something carrying emotional weight? Neither addressed the shift directly, but both felt their carefully constructed boundaries blurring, creating a new reality neither had anticipated or knew how to navigate. The first moment of genuine intimacy came unexpectedly during a business dinner at Le Bernardin. Clara had accompanied Elliot to meet potential Japanese investors, but the conversation had grown heated. The investors questioned Elliot's recent ethical decisions, implying his soft approach was costing profits. Elliot maintained his composure until they directly insulted his integrity, calling him inexperienced and naive. Under the table, Clara's hand found Elliot's. She interlaced their fingers, offering silent support. When he glanced at her, surprised, she held his gaze steadily, a wordless message. "I'm here. You're not alone." The gesture wasn't part of their contract. It wasn't performed for anyone's benefit. It was pure instinct, one human supporting another. Later, in the car, Elliot held her hand with both of his. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." "Why?" Clara paused, searching for honesty. "Because they were wrong about you, and because I wanted to." Elliot's protectiveness had always been professional, ensuring her comfort at events, managing media attention, maintaining their public image, but it began shifting towards something more personal. When a gossip columnist approached Clara aggressively at an art opening, Elliot stepped between them with an intensity that surprised everyone, including himself. "Mrs. Grayson has said enough for the evening." His arm around her waist felt possessive, not performative. His jaw remained tight even after they'd moved away. "You okay?" Clara asked. "People shouldn't harass you." "I can handle reporters." "You shouldn't have to." His voice carried an edge she'd never heard. "Not while you're with me." Clara felt something flutter in her chest, part gratitude, part concern. The line between protection and possession was blurring. The next week, during one of Elliot's business trips, Clara mentioned meeting a college friend for coffee. His response came via text. "Where? When? Do you need a car?" "Just coffee with Lisa," she replied. "I'm fine. Text me when you're home." She stared at her phone. Was this concern or control? That evening, Elliot called. "Sorry if I overstepped today. I just worry." "About what?" "About people taking advantage. About your safety. About—" He paused. "About things I have no right to worry about." Clara's heart raced. The contract specified boundaries, but her feelings weren't following legal guidelines. Gratitude had evolved into something complex, part obligation, part attraction, part genuine affection. When Elliot returned, they shared dinner at home. Clara found herself studying his face, the way concentration furrowed his brow, how his rare, genuine smiles transformed his features. "Something on my face?" he asked, catching her gaze. "No, I just—" Clara stopped herself. What? The question hung between them. Clara could feel the moment's weight, the decision point they were approaching. "Nothing. How was your trip?" But the almost confession lingered. 2 days later, during a family gathering at the Grayson estate, everything shifted. Elliot's aunt cornered Clara in the garden, liquor-bowled and cutting. "How long will this one last?" "The others never made it past 2 years." "I don't know what you mean." "Please. We all know Elliot's little arrangements, though I must say you're playing the role convincingly." Clara felt heat rise in her face, anger, embarrassment, and something else. But before she could respond, Elliot appeared. "Aunt Margaret, perhaps you've had enough wine." His voice was deadly quiet, protective intensity radiating from him. His hand found the small of Clara's back, but this time the touch sent electricity through her nervous system. Later, alone on the drive home, silence stretched uncomfortably. "I'm sorry about my aunt," Elliot finally said. "Don't apologize to her." Clara turned toward him. "But can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you look at me, what do you see?" Elliot pulled over, parking on a quiet side street. He turned off the engine and faced her fully. "I see someone who sacrificed everything for her mother. Someone genuine in a world full of performance. Someone who—" He paused, jaw working. "Someone who makes this arrangement feel real." Clara's breath caught. "Elliot." They both knew they were crossing a line drawn in legal documents. The space between them felt charged, dangerous, inevitable. "We can't," Clara whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to convince him or herself. "I know." But he didn't look away. "I'm trying to remember why—" The moment stretched interminably. Clara watched Elliot struggle visibly with some internal battle. When he reached for her face, she didn't pull away. Then his phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. Reality crashed back. Elliot answered the call, his voice careful. Clara turned to stare out the window, heart pounding, shocked by what had almost happened. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision that could destroy everything you thought you wanted? That moment when desire and duty collide, leaving you questioning everything? Clara realized with sudden clarity that their contract marriage had become something entirely different. Neither of them knew how to navigate what they'd become to each other, or what acknowledging it might cost them both. The ride home continued in silence, but everything had changed. They'd crossed a boundary that couldn't be uncrossed, felt something that wouldn't be ignored. The arrangement was evolving beyond their control, and neither knew how to stop it. Elliot's behavior began shifting in ways that concerned even him. He found himself checking his phone constantly during meetings, waiting for Clara's texts. His morning runs extended past her apartment building, not intentionally, he told himself, just coincidence. "Where were you?" became a regular question when he returned from business trips, though he'd already been getting detailed updates about her daily activities. "Just the hospital with Mom, then home," Clara would answer, increasingly puzzled by his need to know. That reporter from the Tribune was outside again. "Did he bother you?" "I didn't even notice him, Elliot." His assistant Madison started noticing the changes. "Mr. Grayson, You've canceled 3 meetings to check on Mrs. Grayson. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, I'm just ensuring she's comfortable. But even Elliot recognized the lie. He was checking on Clara with an intensity that had nothing to do with their contract obligations. Meanwhile, Evelyn's treatment was showing remarkable results. The color had returned to her cheeks, her appetite improved, and she'd gained back 15 pounds. Dr. Chen was cautiously optimistic. The experimental protocol was working beyond expectations. Your daughter saved your life, Dr. Chen told Evelyn during one checkup. That husband of hers? He's been a godsend. Clara forced a smile. Her mother's improvement should have been pure celebration, but it highlighted the approaching end of their arrangement. In medical terms, success meant the contract would soon fulfill its purpose. But Clara's emotional complications deepened daily. Elliot's protectiveness had evolved into something that felt like possession. She'd catch him studying her when he thought she wasn't looking. His questions about her whereabouts had become more frequent, more detailed. He's becoming dependent on you, Margaret observed during one of their lawyer meetings. Have you noticed? He's just being protective. Clara, I've handled 5 of his contract marriages. This is different. External pressures mounted simultaneously. A persistent journalist named Tom Richards had been investigating Elliot's marriage patterns. His articles grew more pointed, suggesting illegal arrangements, green card marriages, even money laundering. 5th wife in 10 years, Richards wrote. Sources close to Grayson suggest these marriages aren't what they seem. The article quoted anonymous former business associates, hinting at orchestrated relationships and prenuptial agreements worth millions. Daniel noticed the changes too. During a private dinner, he confronted Elliot. You're different with her. The way you check your phone, how you talk about her. Even now, you've glanced at your phone 3 times. It's just the media pressure. Don't lie to me, Elliot. I've known you for 8 years. Nothing's changed between us. Then why does it feel like something has? The pivotal crisis arrived on a Wednesday evening. Clara had gone to visit her mother alone. Elliot was dealing with an emergency board meeting. She returned home to find him pacing the penthouse, phone to his ear, voice strained. I don't care what the photographer saw. Kill the story. I don't care what it costs. When he noticed Clara, he ended the call abruptly. What happened? She asked. Richards got photos of us outside the restaurant Monday. Claims we were intimate, kissing. We didn't. I know, but the angle suggests otherwise. Elliot ran his hands through his hair. My legal team is handling it, but... Clara, if this gets out, everything changes. The contract breach, Daniel, your mother's treatment timeline. She watched him struggling, genuinely tormented. A realization hit her with stark clarity. You're scared, she said softly. Of course I'm scared. If they prove... No, Elliot, you're scared about us. He stopped pacing. Clara, when did we stop pretending? The question escaped before she could stop it. When did this become real for you? The silence stretched painfully. Then Elliot's phone rang again. Daniel's name on the screen. Answer it, Clara urged. I can't face him right now. Because he'll know. He'll see what you see. That I've... Elliot's voice broke slightly. That I've fallen in love with my contract wife. The confession hung between them like a live wire. Clara felt her heart stop and restart. Everything they'd carefully constructed was collapsing. Elliot, don't, please. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know I'm violating every boundary we established. I know Daniel deserves better. I know your mother's recovery means our time is... Clara stepped closer, silencing him. What if I've fallen too? The admission terrified them both. They stood in the penthouse, Manhattan glittering around them, confronting the impossibility of their situation. We have contracts, Elliot whispered. Legal obligations. Daniel, your mother expects us to divorce when she's better. The media is watching everything. I know. What do we do? Clara didn't have an answer. They faced an ethical minefield, honoring their original agreement, protecting everyone involved, or acknowledging feelings that could destroy the very arrangement that brought them together. The phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Chen. "Mrs. Grayson, your mother's latest test results are remarkable. We can begin discussing treatment conclusion timelines." Clara hung up and turned to Elliot. "We're running out of time to figure this out." The weight of their dilemma settled over them. Love, law, loyalty, and contracts. All demanding different decisions, with no clear path forward. The truth emerged during a family dinner, not the Grayson mansion this time, but Evelyn's modest hospital suite, now transformed into something resembling home. "Clara," Evelyn said, her restored strength evident in her voice, "I've been around for 57 years. I know when my daughter is in love." Clara stared at her soup, feeling 14 again. "And more importantly, I know when someone loves her back." Evelyn turned to Elliot, who had been unusually quiet. "Daniel called me yesterday." Both Clara and Elliot straightened. "He's known the truth about everything for weeks. Your little performances didn't fool him." Evelyn's smile held understanding, not judgment. "He also told me he's been waiting for you both to acknowledge what everyone else can see." Elliot found his voice. "Mrs. Bennet." "Call me Evelyn. And listen." She set down her fork. "Life doesn't follow contracts, sweetie. Hearts don't respect legal documents. Sometimes the most unexpected arrangements become the most genuine connections." Clara reached across the table, taking both her mother's and Elliot's hands. "What if we hurt everyone we care about?" "What if you don't try?" Evelyn countered gently. The conversation continued late into the evening. Elliot confessed his fears about disappointing Daniel, failing his family's expectations, and navigating public scrutiny. Clara admitted her struggle between obligation and desire, duty and authentic feeling. "You know what I've learned lying in a hospital bed for months?" Evelyn asked as they prepared to leave. "Life is too short and too precious to waste on arrangements that don't feed your soul." 2 days later, Clara met Daniel for coffee at his request. The conversation was easier than expected. "I love him," Daniel said simply, "but I've been watching him become someone different with you. Someone more open, more vulnerable." He paused. "Someone I wish he could be with me." "No, hear me out. Elliot and we've been comfortable, safe. But comfort isn't the same as growth. You challenge him. You've helped him become someone who can risk loving openly." The decision came naturally after that, not without complexity, legal adjustments, media management, family conversations, but with clarity born from genuine feeling. They redesigned their contract, not ending it, but transforming it into something unprecedented, a marriage that honored both their original agreement and their evolved relationship. Daniel remained in Elliot's life as a friend, their bond shifting but not breaking. The Grayson family adjusted, some with grace, others with resistance. "We're creating something new," Clara said during one late-night conversation in their penthouse. "Something that doesn't fit traditional categories." "Is that okay with you?" Elliot asked, lying beside her, vulnerable in a way he never had been with anyone. "It's better than okay. It's real." Evelyn's recovery continued ahead of schedule. She moved into a comfortable assisted living community that offered independence with medical support. The experimental treatment had worked. But more importantly, the unexpected journey had taught them all something profound. "I asked you to save my mother's life," Clara reminded Elliot one evening. "You did that, and more. You showed me that sometimes the most genuine connections come from the most unlikely circumstances." "You taught me that walls built for protection can become prisons," Elliot replied, "and that contracts can't contain human complexity." They married again, this time in Evelyn's garden, surrounded by friends who had witnessed their journey. No contracts, no negotiations, no prenuptials, just a choice to build something authentic from unexpected foundations. As their story concludes, consider this. How often do we resist connections because they don't fit our preconceptions? How many opportunities for genuine relationships do we miss because they arrive in unexpected packages? Clara and Elliot discovered that love often emerges not from perfect circumstances, but from imperfect people, choosing to see each other clearly. Their contract marriage became a blueprint for something real, precisely because they allowed it to evolve beyond its original boundaries. Before you leave, take a moment to reflect on your own walls. What arrangements in your life might be holding you back from deeper connections? Sometimes the most transformative relationships begin in the most unlikely ways. Please share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the unexpected journeys that change our lives. Because sometimes the most authentic love stories begin with contracts but end with choice.